Hi, everybody. Welcome to this session of our technical interviewing event on cybersecurity. Really excited to have a couple of panelists here who are alumni of the cybersecurity program and currently working full-time. Really excited to have you both here. I know it's the middle of the day, it can be busy, so we really do appreciate it. So without further ado, I'm going to let both of them introduce themselves and we will get started. Well, actually, before so, let me just say the first half hour or so, we are going to do some questions that we have pre-prepared, and then we will be opening up to student Q&A. So if you have any questions during the session, please feel free to chat them in the Q&A and we will be getting to them hopefully during the session. Now, with that said, without further ado, I'm going to open up to both of you, Venkata and Vishvesh, and please feel free to just jump in and introduce yourselves.
Hey everyone, my name is Venkata Raghavendra Santhan, and you can call me Santhan throughout the meeting. Well, I am currently working at Autodesk as a senior application security engineer, and I've worked previously with Synopsys. I interned with them, I did my co-op at Synopsys and then I joined full time. So, yep, feel free to ask me whatever questions you have. I'm here to help.
Thank you, Ethan and Venkata. This is Vishwesh. I graduated from Northeastern in December 2019. Worked at AWS for over a year, and then right now I'm working at Goldman Sachs as a cloud security architect. Very excited for this session. Please feel free to connect on LinkedIn, and definitely we can chat over there as well.
Perfect. Thank you again. So since we've got two of you, I think I'm going to just open the questions up to you both to jump in and answer. So for the first question, I hope we can give us a little bit of insight into technical interviewing for roles in cybersecurity. What does that look like? What is the purpose? And what are some of the expectations? It's a pretty big question. So like I said, let me just open it up to either of you to jump in and go from there.
So it's like purpose of the interview and what kind of questions will be there in the interview process? Is that
yeah, just like general purpose and expectations, I would say, for a role in cybersecurity.
Sounds good. Generally, the cybersecurity role, there'll be like multiple rounds. One of the rounds would be to understand where the candidate is in terms of what level of expertise the candidate has in cybersecurity knowledge base, and that includes like cryptography, application security, OWASP, and nowadays they include cloud as well. So, and in general, there will be like it will depend on the like job description overall what areas will be, but mainly there will always be the basic concepts that we learn in the classes like foundation of IA or computer security or network security. That are always good to kind of refresh those notes, the key concepts, and before the interview. So mainly it's to assess if the candidate has that basic knowledge on security, rather than having like knowing everything in detail, right? So knowing everything in detail is not the purpose of the such interview process. And at the junior level, it will be always be like what is the understanding, how much the candidate is able to kind of grow in the space, what is the kind of their mindset to grow and learn. That's the kind of the main idea of this.
Yeah, and coming back to a co-op interview, I believe the courses we have like NSP, SSP, those most probably 80% of the interviews will just be asked around, theories, or if you have some experience. Mostly there wouldn't be any expectation to have experience, but they would just like to throw you in a situation and they'll see, if how will you solve it out. Most of the technical interviews I have attended were, based on scenarios. So yeah.
So then can you actually go a little bit more into detail on that piece of it? That's a good segue, because my next question was going to be around like a typical interview and what it's, what to expect, what it's like, what people are looking for. So talk a little bit more about that and some of what you faced with those scenarios.
So, I mean, I've observed that the expectations are not too high. They don't want, as Vishwesh just said, they don't expect you to know everything, but the interviewer just wants to make sure that you know what you have on your resume or what you're, learning at school. So you most probably might have basic questions like, I mean, let us assume if it's an AppSec role, then you might have questions around OWASP. You might have questions around browser, what are the browser-based vulnerabilities? I mean, basic one questions they might not ask you to, hey, did you know this hack, or do you know how to? So they wouldn't get into a lot of detail, but yeah, they would like to touch base on everything because technically we are at school, so they just would like to cover the ground instead of digging deeper. You can add if you have anything else, Vishwesh.
Yeah, I think that covers most of the thing. Just want to add one thing, that be very, very good on whatever you write on resume, because they are for sure going to ask whatever you write on resume. If you have written on resume that you have did this kind of pen test, be sure that you know the details. Because if you have written something on resume and you don't know about that like thoroughly, then that's like that person can reject you right away. If you haven't mentioned something and then you fail to answer that, that's okay, because you're not telling that I'm good at it. But if you are telling that I'm good at it and then not being able to answer, is not a good thing.
Definitely being very knowledgeable about what you've actually included as your knowledge on the interview. This is actually also a very good segue into another question that we have regarding resumes. So, and Vishwesh, I'll start you off, just since you did bring up the content on a resume. What is the content that's typically expected to have on your resume? What are employers looking for when applying for co-op internship and even full-time roles? And maybe even let's connect that to another question around what are some of the courses that you've typically found have been very helpful, both for getting that content on your resume, but also just for performing in the interviews.
Very good question. Let me start with the courses, and then I'll answer the first question. I think cryptography. So all technical courses were super helpful, because our curriculum is in a way that all technical courses cover different aspects of the cybersecurity. So computer security, software security, cryptography, foundation, all those like courses taught different aspect of security. So so try to take as many technical courses as you can. If you want to go into risk space specifically, then try to focus on those courses as well. That will definitely be helpful. And even if you want to go in, like you are sure that you want to go in AppSec, that's like domain is fixed, then don't ever think that you should not take a risk management class. Please note that risk management class will be important for all the domains in cybersecurity itself, because everything at the end will be to accept risk or mitigate risk at the end. So that's very important. Coming back to the resume point, I would say typically what employers will look at is what kind of technical aspect the candidate has covered in terms of breadth, not in terms of depth. So what kind of projects they've done, what like at what level, rather than just like configuring something, rather than someone has actually explored something. That is more important. So having such kind of like taking those courses, I think will make you ready for co-op interviews at least. And apart from that, try to, if you like for the basic security related questions, I think Security Plus exam would be a very basic book. You can just buy and read through that book. That will cover most of the topics that are going to be covered on basic interviews. And that will be, I think, a very good starting point for you.
Yeah, I second Vishwesh. I mean, I'm going to share my personal experience from one of the co-op interviews I was giving for Synopsys. I mean, it was an AppSec intern role, but then, as I had risk on my resume, majority of the interview was actually on the risk process. I mean, it was interesting because I didn't do any risk management when I started off my co-op, but then the interviewer was pretty much interested in knowing, hey, what did you learn about risk at school? So when every course is important, it's But then you just have to find a way to relate courses and then speak about them in the interviews.
Perfect. Thank you both so much. And before I ask another question, I am seeing some student questions coming through the general chat. Please make sure if you're asking a question and you're not submitting it through the Q&A, to please submit it through the Q&A, because that's how we will ask them. Okay, so moving on to our next question. Hopefully you can give us a little bit of insight into this. I know you said these are very scenario-based interviews typically. Out of curiosity, are there any that you would define as particularly challenging? And I guess on the other end of that spectrum, were there any that you thought were fairly easy? Let's focus on your co-op internship search for this question. What was like an example of one that maybe was difficult? What was one that was maybe on the easier side?
So I mean, something which is purely technical is, because there's no gray area, it's just black and white. So I believe a question which is purely technical is easier than a question which asks you to solve a situation or a scenario. So yeah, I mean, I'm able to think of a scenario on top of my head. I mean, there might be, when I was giving a full-time interview, I was asked, how do you introduce a security Maven program? What do you think are required? Or, if you want to introduce a new tool to do your DAS testing, how do you plan it? What do you look out for? What do you look out for a DAS when you're reviewing a DAS? What do you look out? What are the vulnerabilities you would like to find? And so those are the type of scenario-based questions wherein you have to build a case. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he has covered most of the thing. Yeah, good with that.
Perfect. Okay, well, let's go off that then. That makes a lot of sense, right? If something is more subjective, it can be more complex. So how do you prepare for those? Like, how have you prepared for those scenario-based questions? What information, do you know any information ahead of time? If you don't, and you're put on the spot with a scenario, how do you prepare? Or how have you prepared?
I mean, as I've already told, they won't test you in depth. I mean, you might not have to know, hey, how was the program actually implemented? You just can make it out in your head. I mean, if you have a fair idea about what is a DAS, what are the findings, what are secure coding practices, you can build up an answer around whatever you know, instead of getting into too much, getting too deep into the explanation. You can just try to build up a scenario wherein you can support whatever you've just said. Yeah, I think, Vishwesh, if you have something else.
Sure. I think the scenario question based it comes with the technical strength. So as we know more on technical depth, we'll be able to kind of answer them better. So let's say there is some of the difficult scenarios would be they start with for AppSec or something, or infrastructure security. They'll start with how would you secure a virtual machine or an EC2 instance on cloud. So they will start with that. Initially, the conversation would be easier, and then they will go in depth into like load balancer and how would you secure them, how would you protect DDoS attacks and all the stuff. So all those things are, there is no like right and wrong or one or two answers directly to that, right? It's the more you explore the overall infrastructure, overall technology, over different concepts on different courses. And again, it might not be, the answer might not come from one subject or one course. That might be, it might be coming from the different subjects. Again, that's why like we are recommending all of the students to take multiple domain courses from multiple domains, because risk a course might help to answer some AppSec or some cloud security answers. So I would say it's just that be patient. Kind of, it's not overnight thing that you will be able to learn. It's slow process. Over the time, you will learn more, and eventually you will gain confidence and I'll be able to answer more.
Oh, thank you for that insight. So let's talk about after the technical interview. Or the interview itself. What steps should you follow as a candidate? And what steps did you follow post-interview? And that's to either of you.
Generally, what I do is I try to kind of get the first name and last name from the interviewer by looking at their Zoom ID or something like that, and then try to connect them via LinkedIn. Try to send a thank you note. But surprisingly, some of the interviewers do not like that. But anyways, I just kind of connect them over the LinkedIn, and while connecting that, I just keep a small note. Some nowadays, some of the interviewer have like blocked their LinkedIn and everything. So just do not worry about if you're not able to connect with them. You can just, to recruiter, you can just send a thank you note saying that I would like to thank this many interviewers, and I think it should be good. And be patient until the recruiter or someone else will reach out to you. On the other side, there might be a lot going on, so it might take some time. So do not think that, okay, if I haven't got a receipt back or anything in a week, that means it's a rejection. It's not like that. Be patient, and I think you should. It will happen. What's going to be happening?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, my co-op interview process took around 2 to 2.5 months. I mean, there were breaks of a couple of weeks in between. So I mean, you never know what's going on inside the company. So yeah, you just have to
Definitely.
be.
Yeah.
It's true. Since we've got a little bit of time, and then I will definitely open up the Q&A soon because we're already getting questions in, and I definitely want to give the students plenty of opportunities to ask questions. I'm just curious, what are the major differences that you noticed between your co-op internship interviews and your full-time interviews? Whether that's number of rounds or the type of questions you're asked, or are they very similar?
It's definitely not similar. There will be a huge gap between number of rounds as well as technical depth. In co-op internship, I remember that it was like few 2 or 3 rounds mainly, just to know the person if it is a good fit or not. In full time, after getting to know if that person is good fit or not, there'll be like 4 to 5 more technical rounds just for focusing on technical stuff. The depth would be more in full time interviews. And yeah, there will be behavioral round as well, but more the focus will be more on technical rounds. And again, it would totally be dependent on the company you're applying to and the role you're applying to. The kind of structure would be different, but again, the basic security concepts from your courses would I think be there forever.
Yeah, I mean, there might be a few experience-based questions when you are attending a full-time interview. You might not have a lot of them when you know, if it's your first co-op or if you don't have any professional experience before you've you worked on a co-op. So that was one difference you can expect in a co-op interview and a full-time interview. And as Vishwesh just said, there are a lot more rounds in your full-time interview, you know, when compared to the rounds in co-op interview. The basic concepts are the same. They might actually ask you the basic questions too, but then you might just want to dig deeper and, you know, learn more about what have you done for the last 1 year, 2 years while you were working. So
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. No, it's been great to get your insight over these last 20 minutes or so. I think let's open up the Q&A now, just because there are questions coming through, and I always like to leave as much time as possible, again, for students to ask questions. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Kara Greeny, who's our Align Co-op Career Advising intern, who will be leading the Q&A. So Kara, take it away.
Hi, folks. Thanks thus far with all of your insight that you've been sharing. I'm just pulling up the questions, and feel free to keep sending in questions as we continue to go. And I'll leave these questions up to you two to decide if you both want to answer it or just one of you wants to answer it as well. So let's start with this question. What value do certifications hold in the interview? Would you suggest to go for certifications during study period, or doing it after gaining some experience?
Honestly, I would say go for one certification before you finish your degree. That might be a little ambitious, but it would definitely help you a lot. Because once you start full-time job, it's pain to do something else outside of work hours. So if you have some certification during your work study period, it would be for sure very helpful.
Great, thank you for that. We'll go into this question. What is the level of knowledge for programming generally required? Is it comparable to a software developer?
And definitely not comparable to a software developer. There might be a few roles if you are, trying to build a security-based tool, then you might have to have development experience equal to a software developer. But then if you would like to do AppSec or infrastructure security or, maybe risk privacy, I don't think the expectation of programming would be as much. But then, it's always good to have some programming in your bag, like be fluent in at least one language, one framework. That would definitely help.
Great. And I know we have discussed with some of the questions that Ethan posed, some typical questions that you receive in an interview, but we did have that asked again in the chat. So I didn't know if there were any questions that we may have not spoken about thus far that you have personally been asked in an interview or that are common within the interview process.
One common question I've heard when I was giving my co-op interviews was, what's your favorite, subject? I mean, that's just to know where are you interested in, and because they would like to ask you what you know about what you know rather than asking you about what you don't. So that usually helps. So when you answer that question, like make sure that you given a subject or whatever which you're actually good at. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's risk, it doesn't matter if it's privacy. But then, your initial impression would be based on the questions he asks you, because you mentioned that it's your favorite subject. So, yeah. So if you have
Definitely,
anything else.
definitely, yeah. Few more kind of questions generally get asked is basic cryptographic questions. How the certificate things and PK and everything works. Be very good with let's say have a good understanding of how the email encryption works end to end with certificate and a private key, public key, everything. The second question I almost got asked in all the interviews were, what happens when you type www.google.com in your browser and what happens in the backend? What's the process of, so basically they want you to explain the DNS process and how the IP addresses are resolved and all the stuff. Another common question would be good with the very famous attacks like cross-site scripting, injection attacks, XML, all the stuff. And yeah, those will be the basic security related questions. Apart from other questions would be more on role focused. Let's say if you are, so I can speak more on cloud side. If you are in interview from cloud security space, be thorough with a couple of cloud services you are good with, because they will ask you like, what is your favorite service or what service are you comfortable with? And then you can mention that and go from there.
Great, thank you for that. We had someone share in the Q&A section that they have a software engineering background and they don't have experience in the cybersecurity field. So they were wondering what types of skill sets are looked at within cybersecurity.
Well, it depends, if it's product security, if it's a security product. So, I mean, you can definitely do. I've had a friend who's into, software development, and then he's done a co-op with Synopsys. I mean, you can definitely explore. There are a lot of companies which have security tools, so you can start off with developing security tools and then get knowledge about. So yeah, I think that's the best way to go. Start off with a company which has a security tool which is actively developing one, so that you can leverage your development experience as well as start learning about what are the security practices and stuff. I would say if you're pretty fluent with software development, maybe, I mean, I might be wrong, but AppSec might be one of the choices for you, because there is a lot of stuff you can do with coding in AppSec. You can automate processes and and yeah, Yeah, and maybe you can look into secure coding. You can start learning about secure coding practices, and then you might be able to help them with the DAS process. I'm sorry, SAS process. So those would be the options to start off if you have no security experience at all.
Definitely.
Sure.
And nowadays companies do have like DevSecOps. It's a buzzword. Feel free to kind of look more into it, or feel free to reach out to me offline. We can connect more on that. And another buzzword is infrastructure as a code. It is related to it is somewhat development, but it's again on, it can be on security side as well. So it's those fields kind of are a mixture of software development and security. And some of the positions would be like security software engineer. So yeah, there are plenty of kind of options down there.
Sure. Thank you both. We had a question come in about courses, asking what contextual courses you found most useful other than security risk management.
You wanna go ahead?
I mean, all the courses are important. Maybe forensics was interesting. I mean, I would say it was very interesting. I didn't, get a chance to apply for a few jobs doing forensics. Yeah, that was pretty interesting. I mean, it's like, once you start learning about something, it will definitely help you with the others. And, as we've already talked about risk, what are the other conceptual? I mean, you can add up if you have something in mind.
I would say I will just say one generic line. One course, like one specific course, will not lend you a job if you haven't taken that, or if you have taken that course. If you haven't taken a course, it doesn't mean that you will not get a job, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you both for that. We just had a question come in regarding how did you identify what exactly you wanted to do within cybersecurity, as it is a very large space?
I would say explore, do internship. While on the internship, there will be less amount of work you need to do. Try network, try networking with people as much as you can. Try to learn about what other teams are doing. That will help you determine what are the fields out there, what kind of work can be done in this area. Also, it will help you in kind of getting your written offer, because the more you network are the better chances for you to get the written offer. This kind of skills are other things are not generally told to the person. Generally, interns are kind of sit on the desk and keep working to impress other people or managers. I think it's to be able to work and to be able to deliver is important, but networking is also as important as that.
Yeah, just to add up to that, interns, in my experience, I've worked as an intern for a pretty long time. So the expectations from an intern is definitely pretty low. You don't have to do something. So you can try exploring where. So when I was at Synopsys does it does AppSec, does network security, and a lot of other things. So you just have to go to your manager, sit with them, ask, hey, I think I want to explore that. I mean, you'll definitely be given an opportunity, and that is why a lot of companies hire co-ops. They just want you to explore and then find whatever you like, and then you can start working. There's no, you don't have to rush into something. You can just explore whatever options you have and then choose about, okay, this is what I want to do for at least for the next few months or next few years.
Sure. Still on that note of exploration, we had a question come in regarding size of companies and how to decide maybe between an opportunity at a startup compared to an opportunity at a larger company, if you had any advice on that.
I mean, you can start off with researching. I mean, just set aside if it's a small or big company. Like, you can start off with researching as in, what does it do? What am I supposed to do in there? What does the company do? What does it has to offer? What do I have to offer to the company, and what does the company has to offer to me? Like, if you are interested into if you are interested in AppSec or network security, then you might want to go with a company like NetSpy or Synopsys, or a few others who actually do a lot of application security. But then if you have different ideas, like if you want to go get into cloud, or maybe you can try AWS. It depends. But then, you can think about it from, as Vishwesh just mentioned about a full-time job opportunity. I mean, it depends on how do you want to progress in your career personally. But I personally, don't have a problem to do a co-op at startup or a big multinational company. It doesn't really matter as long as you learn a lot. Yeah. So Vishwesh, if you want to add up, I mean,
You got it.
Great. We had another question come in, and I hope I'm asking it correctly as they want it. But they were asking about what other things or activities they should be looking at apart from curriculum. So I'm guessing that's apart from maybe their course selection. What other things should they be working on?
you can attend conferences that would help you network and know a few people from the industry, and then they might be able to help you end up in a co-op or a full-time. So yeah, attend conferences. And what else can you do? So Vishwesh, if you have anything else.
Yeah, talking about conference, GHC is a very good one. There will be other conferences nowadays happening virtually as well. Apart from that, try if you want to build your programming skills, which most of you won't need to, but try HackerRank, or for security related, try Hack the Box or Capture the Flag. Those kind of initiatives will be very helpful, and certification is a good option as well.
Yeah, and you also have Boston security meetups. I assume most of the students are in Boston, so yeah, that's a good one too. So they might also you might also be able to attend them virtually now that people can't gather and stuff. So you might want to research about that.
Sure. We've been having quite a few questions come in regarding different industries within the field of cybersecurity. So I'll offer some of those out if you have any thoughts. So we had someone ask, any advice for people interested in threat or malware research?
Vishwesh, if you have something.
I haven't had the chance to explore those areas yet, but I would suggest to start with looking into new. So when it comes to research, other than what is already there very long time ago, other than that, it's good to focus on what is coming today, what can be improved, and what is that something that you would like to improve. What are the areas that you would like to dig into? So those areas, if you think that is something that you will be interested in, then it's a good space to be. There are a lot of space in security. It's not no good or bad space. It's just that whatever clicks you, it's for you.
Great, thank you. We also had a question come in regarding about selection of coursework to feature on their resume. I didn't know if either of you had any thought processes when you would think about which courses to feature on your document when you would apply to co-ops or internships.
Do feature all of them. If it is taking too much of space, try to feature at least technical courses. But I would say feature all of them. You can just tweak the. You don't have to specify the whole name. You can specify the gist of the course. It should be good. Try to include as many buzzwords as you can.
Great. Let's see what else we have. And like I said, feel free to keep adding questions. This is always a common theme, thinking about timelines. And I'll pose it as what, if you want to speak from your personal experience about timelines for whether that was interviews for co-ops or full-time roles, in sharing that experience.
So I mean, it might vary. Maybe you might want to look at you might want to start off with looking at a couple of weeks to a couple of months. The interview process, the timeline for an interview process, right? I mean, if I got your question right, is that what you're asking about? Yeah, I mean, it depends from company to company. So even you might look at somewhere around 2 weeks to 2 months. some might be quicker. I mean, you might just have one interview and then land into a job. So
great. We also had a few questions coming in regarding if you have no prior work experience, you're just getting started, what would your advice be for those individuals?
I can take
So,
that.
yeah.
Sorry about that. The reason why I want to take is I didn't have any experience prior to starting my first job. So I just did my I finished my bachelor's in India, came to here directly, and my bachelor's was in computer science. So I had that same dilemma all the time that you guys have. So it's mostly it's okay not to have experience. Of course, having experience would add, but it's not the end of the world. You always can learn during the coursework. You can learn side by side. Once you have your first job, first internship or co-op, then life would be so much easier, because there it's now on you how much you are able to explore and learn. So don't worry about all those things. It's okay, and just try to kind of focus on right now what is on your hand, and try to explore and learn as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, just to add to what Vishwas said, you know, if you have no experience and if you're just coming out of your bachelor's and started off your master's here, you know, try to have a side project maybe, just cause you can talk about it in the interview. So the thing is, you need to have something to talk about in the interview. I mean, you can't just keep doing yes or no, or, you know, purely technical. So, you know, you can have a side project as in where you can do whatever, like have a side project on whatever you're passionate about, so that you can talk about it in the interview. I mean, it counts as experience. It doesn't, you don't have to have a lot of experience. I mean, I had a couple of years of experience, but it was not in security. So you need to have something that you can talk about in the interview. So that's what matters. And, you know, for first time job seekers, it is always important for you to, you know, interviews is not like, you know, one silver bullet, like you might get your first one, or you might have to take 4 or 5. So, you know, just try to analyze what are people expecting out of just try to write down, if you go wrong somewhere, try to write down, do some research, try to get it right, and then the next interview you might actually face the same question. As Vishwesh just mentioned, most of the common questions, yeah, he's just given you away with, what happens when I do www.google.com, or questions about network security, like basic questions. So you just write down, try to learn about it, and in the next interview, you'll definitely do better. So, and there are a lot of openings for cybersecurity. So, yeah.
Great. We did also have a question come in regarding how much leak code people should be doing, or if CTF should be given more importance.
Definitely CTF over lead code. Lead code would be more if you want to go on pure development side. If you want to be in security space, CTF, like the box, basic security concepts, reading about security, latest vulnerabilities, whatever is happening in the world, it's a very good idea to like learn about what are new attacks happening, why they are happening, how could you remediate those attacks, or how could you protect them, and all those things are useful rather than doing lead code.
Yeah, sure.
Great. We also had another question come in thinking about, I know we were discussing earlier having no experience going into the field. We had a question come up if having prior non-security work experience has value, or if that puts you on the same level of not having any prior experience.
Experience, it definitely will have some value. I mean, it's experience would, I mean, at least I believe experience wouldn't go for waste. So you'll have something to talk about, and if it doesn't help you technically, it might also help you in the behavioral rounds, like, you know, where you can, if you can say that, hey, we faced this scenario, how did you solve it? And then you can just think about, okay, how did I solve a situation when I was back doing some other job. So it will definitely help you with the other interviews. It might not directly help you with the technical interview, but then, yeah, it's not always.
Sure. We had kind of more of a broader question to post about, and it was just framed as how are career opportunities in the field of governance, risk management, and compliance. I didn't know if either of you had any thoughts regarding that question either.
Definitely, there are. It's a good area to be in as well. During one of my internships, I was working in team is like GRC team, which is governance, risk, and compliance. I was doing some uh, continuous controls monitoring stuff, but yeah, there are a lot of space you can be in. Like every company needs to be in compliance with so many guidelines and all the new laws and everything. So there will always be space for that. It's just that if you like that kind of work, it would be very good. It's not, there is no like less important or more important field when it comes to IT. IT becomes IT when all the components become together. So it's like if you like into that area where you like to specify controls, you like to read about different things, define few controls for the company, and try to make sure that those are kind of implemented, all the stuff. It would be a good area to be in.
Yeah, if you like risk and compliance, you can just go for it. It's a good line of business. There are a lot of openings in risk and compliance too. It's just that it's a different type of work when compared to offensive or defensive. Compliance is a little different. So if you are interested, then yeah.
Great, thank you for that insight. We did receive a question specifically about cloud security. Let's see. Any just general tips on whether that's choosing classes or preparation with getting a role in cloud security that you would offer?
Definitely. In a couple of classes, there will be some assignments or projects that you will be working on some cloud, some AWS, something like that. To be very basic introduction. If you want to be in cloud, the best advice I can give is just play with it. You will get free 1-year AWS account. Just sign up for that. Play with that as much as you can. Try to know the services. If you know the services, I think that would be good enough for you to get like an entry-level job or the internship or co. The main service I can think of are like IAM, S3, EC2, CloudTrail, GuardDuty, all those mainly security focused or main services. Just kind of go there, play there, and see what configurations are there, how you can misconfigure, how you can configure, what are the resources you can use. So that would be the best advice. There is no one way to kind of, someone is not be able to teach you the cloud. Cloud is nothing but the infrastructure as a whole. So it will be different components, but in different way. So you just need to learn. You just need to kind of explore those areas. That's it.
Great, thank you for that insight. We also had a question posed regarding side projects. If these should be individual side projects or team side projects. Any thoughts regarding that?
Anything, doesn't matter.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. As long as you have something to contribute to the project.
Sure.
And your academic projects also counts. I mean, if you're doing a project for a course, that would count too. You don't specifically have to build a side project if you don't want to.
Yeah, and like and a tip on that is like if you are doing some cool assignments that you think it's very security focused, or you have like learned something very good, try to identify or try to mark them as a project on your resume. That's fine. That can be your project. If there is a 1 week of your weekly assignment has something like a pen test, just try to mark them as a project. That's fine.
Sure.
As long as you are able to answer that questions when someone asks you that what is it or how did you do it. If you are good with all the technical details, then yeah, please feel to mark them as a project.
This let a participant ask a follow-up question regarding if research projects help.
They do.
They do.
Great. We also had questions, I know, from participants regarding when they should be applying for co-op full-time opportunities. I know we discussed their personal experiences, but I would recommend you to discuss that on an individual basis with your co-op and career advisor for the participants that did ask that in the chat box.
I would say do it today.
What was that?
Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I was just wrapping up. Did you have something to share?
Okay. I was just saying that just do it today. People like companies have already started giving offers to interns for next year. So it's already there are openings in the market. So just start finish on your resume and start applying as soon as you can for the next summer. For full time, it's during your internship. It's good idea to kind of explore the opportunities in that company itself or outside of the company. There is never too early to start applying. Whenever you are ready, just start applying.
Sure. Thank you. And thank you both for answering all the questions. We actually got through all of them, which is always great because I know sometimes that's tough to do. I will pass it over to Ethan to close up the session today.
Awesome. Yeah, so we do technically have about 10 more minutes or so. If we end early, we end early. But if anybody does have any additional questions that you want to ask, I mean, please feel free to send them in. But I'll just ask a couple of final questions just because I like ending on a few that I have in mind. So one of them, I think you did start talking a little bit about this earlier in the session, but I think just out of curiosity, what are some of the major differences that you've noticed between the work you've done in your co-op internship roles and your full-time roles right now?
Responsibility.
Yeah, I mean, accountability. I mean, you're not really held accountable for if you mess up something being an intern. I mean, it's okay. I mean, that's expected. And then if you do that as a full, when you're a full timer, then you might have to hold the accountability. Yeah, I don't think it's very different. It's the same job. It's the same work as long as you start asking for work in your internship. Like sometimes interns might be given some uninterested work, and if you don't like it, you can just definitely go and ask for work. You'll get more work. You'll get more interesting work. I mean, that's how I got work when I was an intern. I was doing DAST evaluations, and then I asked them, hey, can I do a pen test? And then they were like, okay, I mean, if you're comfortable with the pen test. So you got to ask when you're an intern.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Venkata, as well about, one way to optimize your experience, right? As a co-op or an intern role is, despite what the responsibilities are, showcasing that you want to learn more. So you were able to do some additional work then by asking. Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get to do a lot of interesting stuff when you're an intern if you don't ask to, because they by default they assume that you just want to play it safe. You want to not to get your hands dirty. But if you want to, then you might get a chance. There's no harm in asking.
Cool. Then Vishvesh, did you have any thoughts too around difference co-op internship to full-time? Pretty similar.
I think it's pretty similar. In internship, they know that we are going to leave after like 10 weeks, 12 weeks, or after a few months. So they kind of don't want to include us in like more long-term projects or more responsible, more things that are going to be handed off to someone else. In full-time, rather, we get a little bit liberty on working on different things, taking on different initiatives the way we want to. So it's I think the major difference.
Thank you. And I guess we'll finish it up with one final question, which is, what is, one final piece of advice, that you would give to our students that are currently tuned in? It could be anything regarding this topic. And I'll just leave it up to whoever wants to start.
I would say do not take anything lightly. Keep kind of working, exploring, reading, learning. Even if you think that you have kind of like 10 years of experience in this field and you will be able to get the internship easily, don't think like that. And also don't think like if you don't have any experience, you won't be able to get internship. It's like it's always it is never at the end, right? So try to explore things apart from. I think you all, if you go out into Northeastern cybersecurity program, then trust me, you are capable enough to get a good job in US. So that's, I think, so trust yourself, and just if you are here, that means you are going upwards and onwards. There is no there is no down line from here. And while you are studying, explore I assume most of you are in like US, and try to explore different cities, different areas in US. Try to explore more. Try to have fun. That is, time is not going to come back. Anything will come back. You'll be able to get admission in different school, get degree from different school, or get another degree from the same school. But trust me, time is not going to come back. So enjoy your this program. Try to network with as many people as you can, and keep exploring.
Yeah, that was some good suggestion. I mean, I do have one suggestion. I mean, technically, so there was one thing that helped me while I was doing my co-op search. Don't upload the same resume for every job. You got to keep updating your resume, like have 10 different, how many ever different. I mean, I remember Smile mentioning it in one of our co-op classes when I had it in the first year itself. So yeah, I mean, that actually helped me. You need to have, one resume for AppSec, one resume for network security, one for cloud. So, your chances will multiply. Don't just apply apply with the same resume everywhere. I mean, you might apply for 100 different positions, but then if it's the same resume, and so yes, you got to keep that in mind. That's one thing I would suggest people to do.
But and that actually categorizing a resume is a good way to think about it, right? Because that actually also answers, I think, especially we were saying earlier, where it's like you want to include everything, but you can't include everything because it's a one-page resume.
Yeah.
You want to have the most relevant experience that you're representing from your coursework and projects. Awesome. All right. Well, I don't think we have any final questions. So I guess we can end it a few minutes early, but Venkata and Vishwesh, thank you so much for being here, taking some time out of your busy days to share your insight with the students. Do we have your permission to share your contact information, LinkedIn URLs with the participants in case they want to reach out or ask additional questions?
Sure.
Please
And
do.
thanks for having us here.
Of course. No, thank you for being here. All right.
Yeah, thank you all, and please feel free to reach out to us anytime with any questions. Yeah, we would definitely be more than happy to help with wherever we can. And just as a side note, like most of the companies have started their internship and everything. We are also hiring. So if you see positions, please start applying for that.
Great. All right. Thank you both.